We move on to our next panel that is about data-based decisions for transport planning. And I would like to invite the moderator of this panel, Angelo Martino from TRT. Antulio Richetta from IBI. Professor Amalia Polydoropoulou from the University of the Aegean, and Andreu Ulied from MCRIT.
So, good morning from my side. And so we have this session now, which is about data and modeling. And we will not have slides, so I will not have to deal with this problem of up and down of the screen. And the topic here is use of data, data for modeling and for planning, what this might be, what could be the consequences for modeling, for planning. And we will discuss this with three experts from academia, Professor Amalia Polydoropoulou, from the industry, Antulio Richetta, and from the consultancy sector with Andreu Ulied. My first invitation is to them to present themselves, and then I will pose a couple of questions, and I will invite you also to participate with your questions to the discussion. So maybe we start with Amalia.
My name is Amalia Polydoropoulou. I'm a professor at the University of the Aegean in Greece, director of, in the Department of Shipping, Trade and Transport, and director of the Transport and Decision-Making Laboratory. I'm a civil engineer and transportation engineer, but I would describe myself as a behavioral modeler and forecasting expert. We are developing different types of models with regards to the adoption of new mobility service, mobility as a service, autonomous vehicles, aerial also vehicles, and lately also business models for all these new mobility services, and we are lately utilizing also citizen science methodologies and living labs in order to better understand the behavior of the individuals in these, with respect to these new technologies, and to predict the behavior in the future, and with respect to also environmental implications.
Yeah, good afternoon. My name is Antulio Richetta. I am director with the Arcadis IBI. It has two names because Arcadis just bought IBI. So we are in this important and interesting transition. My professional career has been devoted to the planning and control of the transportation infrastructure. So I have been participating in this project as a contributor from the practice side. I have had experience on the planning of transport in basically two projects that were important for me. In the Athens, I was responsible for the Athens transportation master plan back in 2006. And then that one was like a traditional master plan. And then we were engaged by actually McKinsey in the year 2009 or 10 for realizing a flash transportation master plan for the city of Moscow. So that was a very interesting experience in which we were challenged to support very quickly the decision making of big transport projects without having the data and without having the formal methodology. So that was very interesting. I'm very excited about the products of this project because I think those the modeling framework can support both approaches. You mentioned the light one, Athena. The other side of my practice has to do with the actual operation and control of infrastructure. We have products that facilitate the control of motorways, for example. And in that, we are interested in being able to use especially the operations models, the models that support operations in a real-time or real-life kind of situation where there is an event that takes place and we can use the models to understand how we'll develop, support different response scenarios, and so on. So for that, we are also participating in the Frontier and Spine projects. I see colleagues from both projects here. I'm very, very excited to be here today. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Angelo, and the organizers for having me here. It's a lovely Friday morning, nice place. I've never been in this, I think it's a desacralized church, maybe?
No,
Anyways,
it's a hospital.
Yeah, no, it's great to be here. As Angelo said before, I'm consultant. I'm partner director of a company called MCRIT, MCRIT, from Barcelona. And we work for infrastructure manager, service operators, public administrations of different scale, particularly in the transport and urban development sector. So our company is quite similar to TRT. And well, I'm pleased to be here. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And so my first question to the panelists is about the data, how the availability of data can change transport modeling. The lack of data was a typical excuse of modelers when we were not able to provide a good model, or when our forecasts did not match very well with the real data. But now there is plenty of data, big data, different sources. But how this will change the transport modeling? There will be an automation of modelers. We, as modelers, will become redundant. So my question is a bit provocative, and please, I don't know, again from Amalia first.
Thank you. First of all, I forgot to mention that our team was responsible for the development of the tactical simulator here in the Harmony project, which is really important. And we utilized a lot of data, and we needed a lot of data from the different cities in order to develop these models. However, the big data availability is really, really important, and it gives us a lot of other solutions. So we have seen also new models that are currently being developed, for example, planning models, utilizing only Google data. These are also very important modeling efforts that are now available to us. And with this big data analytics, we will be able to see different patterns in using this data in our cities and solve a lot of problems. So it's what we call data-driven modeling, and this will be very beneficial, but I would like to mention that there are also a lot of benefits in the detail, and the models that we have traditionally been developed. So there are certain relationships that still need to be understood, and in order to develop meaningful and plausible models, and we need always to understand the why and the constraints, and all this discussion about why people are using their cars, for example, and we still see that high levels of penetration of cars.
Data collection. The task that is, I think, the most challenging, not only effort-wise, but time-wise. It takes a considerable amount of time to do that. So anything that can help us reduce the time in the tasks that are related to a master plan, to a project of master planning, I think is welcome. So then it comes the fact of who has that data, who owns that data, and how you can acquire it. Some of that data is readily available, is open source. Some of that is not. And you mentioned Google. Google is an example of a data closed kind of company, and I have heard of one company that was able to open that box, and now they're being very successful in doing flash transportation master plan. So access and any data that is there to save the time, I think, is very important. That's what we would like to emphasize. So if you have data, please share it, so that not only for master plan, in fact, for any system that is trying to respond to any event in the city, a corridor, for example, that I think should be, it's very helpful. The other thing is there's the filtering and standardization. If you have data, it would be nice that there is a series of, a standard way of connecting to it and using it. So it is very important to have that as well. On whether the transport planners will be replaced by data or AI, I guess. Well, I guess they are going to be supported in a stronger way, because what AI will do is that I see it as a very smart agent of gathering information from anywhere in the internet and trying to put this together and present it to you as information. Don't take it literally. I think you have to analyze it, and that's why, as it happened with Vlad when he found out that the AI bot or tool was did not present to him as something related to safety, is because I guess that in the internet there was not too much information related to safety and the question that he made, and so you have to take it always with a grain of salt. But it's very important because it is extremely exhaustive, the searches that it can provide. But the conclusions are still something that we need to filter.
Yes, well, I think, Angelo, that the question is just great. I think it's the question we that work on this field should be more concerned about, because I think we are still not obsolete, but in a matter of few years, I think we will be obsolete. I think the things we have been working all our lives maybe will be out of fashion and will be not needed anymore. I just had a conversation 3 weeks ago with my sister-in-law that happens to be one of the best experts on new kind of modeling paradigms. She's teaching at the University of Berkeley, before at the MIT. She's called Marta Gonzalez, maybe you know her. Which is amazing is that the models she's doing right now, based on mobile phone and other sources of data, she don't want to tell me what kind of sources they are. Anyway, she's modeling person to person. So the models she's doing are more anthropological, psychological. The models she's doing is based on huge computer capabilities, intelligent algorithms. So it's something that has nothing to do with the things we know. And when I try to explain her, something of microeconomics, something of welfare theory, something on 4 steps models, she's not interested at all. She's not interested at all. So I'm very much interested on anything she wants to tell me, and she's not interested at all on anything I know. So this is my feeling. I'm not happy.
No, this is a bit scaring, and
yeah,
because this intervention, the consideration that we have the problem of data ownership, which is concentrated, and so do model help to go into this process of centralization of information and centralization of everything? It's a bit worrying in a sense. But trying to go back to the issue of the data, something that was mentioned is standardization and the possibility to exchange data. I think this is an extremely important point, and I think also this is important for the point of view of the local authorities, that because with our tool we aim to empower, to support local authorities, to give them the possibility to plan, to understand, to predict, and to define strategies. But this problem of data exchangeable and the data standardization is important, and maybe you have something to say for this, on this point?
Data standardization is really important. And how do we achieve this? What we really want is that the data that fits its model is standardized. And an app like the Mobi app, for example, can give a solution because it has a standard way of collecting the data, and the outputs then can be used directly to feed the models that we are developing. An app is really important. And also, if the data sharing is really important as well. We have been working with many authorities, and we want to get data, but also the authorities want to give data, but sometimes they cannot give the data. So it's all the decision makers, all the actors in the ecosystem need to be willing to share this data, and this data to be open.
Well, I won't say much because I was the one who brought the topic of standardization up. So I'm going to give you the floor. Well, when it comes to data, you know, one of the things we, for example, would like to do is that can we replace the activity-based surveys, for example? And can that information, however, that is activity-based, be provided in a standard way by other sources? That's an important topic, an aspect of the planning that has to be addressed. So what I think it would be ideal is that if the cities or the authorities have as an endeavor to provide a data translator, let's say, or a data engine that is able to digest data from any source, including social media, by the way, and putting that into a format that is usable by the tools that are used for planning. So that should be perhaps part of the scope of planning projects that are undertaken by cities.
Yeah, just briefly, I think that we suffer for data lack of standardization or harmonization because we still mostly use data aggregated by official institutions at a given administrative level. Then it's complicated to assemble and to integrate data coming from different institutions at different scales or by different institutions dealing with sectors that have different traditions and so on. But when we see the future, I see data which is global instead of national, let's say, which is more private instead of public, and is much more decentralized, much more related to a single person, let's say. And the data concerning where are you, the coordinates, the geographic coordinates, where are you, and the time you move from one coordinates to another does not need much standardization. So when the data is at this very low level, there is no problem of standardization. So I see that the problem now we have is a standardization of the scarce data we have, but in the future, the problem is going to be missing data, noise in the data, outliers, errors, data mining, so other kind of things which are not related to the standardization of aggregated data at given administrative or sectors.
And I don't know if there are maybe questions from the audience on to our panelists about this problem of data. Yeah, there is something in the back.
My name is Andreu, and one point was raised here, so I am a standardization expert, and another technical expertise instead European organization, ISO, and other organizations. The question is, did you formalize your standardization needs
say.
Of course, as we said, it is really crucial to do this standardization. I believe that in all processes that we are going to do and in future projects, we will take all the findings that we had from this project and also to comply with GDPR concerns and have something about standardization that here. Yes.
One of the other topics and aspects that has been brought in is that the source of the data is going from the actual service that we were used to and the passenger to other sectors of the economy. Let's say we talked about mobile data, mobile phone data, and how it can be translated to origin destination, for example. And I guess now, with the advent and the introduction of electric vehicles, the data from the power industry and how that is used will also be important for us to understand. So back on the standardization, I think the intervention was very, very useful, because we in projects usually maybe forget the standardization part, and we should have that in mind for when we form our teams, and to have perhaps standardization be one of the outputs of our projects, because we ask for that, but I don't think we are so much aware of that we are the ones that can be part of that effort. So I think it's very important, and that we should have it in mind for the next proposals that we're putting forward as part of not only the European research projects, but also to have it in mind in regular commercial projects that are being executed.
I remember when Angelo and me were young, it's not so far away, 20 years ago, we worked in a project that we developed with our colleagues from MCRIT in Karlsruhe, a kind of standardized data model for transport we call GTF, Generalized Transport Format, because the standardization in transport is, as you know, is complicated in the way all the different data has to be organized and given a structure. And we define this kind of structure for data that can be useful for modeling. And this GTF, I saw years ago that Google is using something called exactly GTF, and also on the software industry, the conversion of data from different software is also relatively easy. Always there are things which are not really translated, but in general so I see that in the industry. There is in the European institutions as well and global institutions, there is a trend towards providing more ways to standardize data on transport. And because data is becoming, as I said before, more, I will say, individual, because we have more capacity to manage huge volumes of data, of bus to bus, person to person, company to company, then standardization, I think, is gonna be less important or less challenging than it was when we were younger and naive.
Yes, we didn't go for the copyright, we didn't go to any institution, we didn't go to Geneva, to the UN, or to the European Commission. Yeah, but the project was called Bridges. Yes. Bridges, just to connect models, but this was 20 years ago or even more. So. And I have is there any other questions from the audience? Yes, please.
Two questions. One question is the role of data that comes from public authorities. So there's a big push on open data. When I hear you talk about a multitude of sources. So what is then the importance for cities to get their act together on the open data side? And the second question is that in vast levels of connectivity, the traffic management and
Thanks. So who wants to?
Yes, okay, so the public transport authorities, it depends on the country. So some countries, for example, collect data every year. Some countries collect data every 10 or 15 years. Now, with all this new big data availability, this chronological difference will be much smaller, and then public also transport authorities, decision makers, policy decision makers will also have much more data in order to do their work. But behind, but the data needs to be analyzed, and the data, and so that this data also we can utilize it with easy models, for example, like the MS Lite that was presented by Athena before, that is not so much data hungry. It can utilize parameters, standardized parameters from other cities, and then you use the big data and the IA and the machine learning capabilities in order to customize the parameters to your city. And what is actually very nice is that with the development of the different dashboards, then decision makers can compare different types of scenarios, different policies to be tested, and then come up with the best policies available.
An interesting and very important aspect of the data coming from public organizations is the so-called silos. These are very traditional organizations that run for more than for hundreds of years now, and they were given the very important task of the transport of being responsible for the safe and also timely transport of people in the city, and that's very important. With the inception of technology and the need to do things quicker, and also players that are, I don't want to say scavenging the transport transport objective of these institutions, there is a need of sharing of information. So institutionally, these organizations did not have the need to share. Yeah. And institutionally, that has to change. When it comes to traffic, that has to be helped, I guess, from the legal framework of a country, of a region, of a city, so that these organizations are encouraged, and they also have to see the value, however, yeah, because it's their transport project that needs to see the value of sharing that information. The other aspect that I have seen is that in several cities, the transport project sometimes is subcontracted or run in PPP kind of situations, where the contracts that these public authorities have with these private institutions that are perhaps doing the ticketing, perhaps doing some other aspects of the transport project like control, apparently their contracts don't have those requirements on data. So when we as consultants produce the contracts for letting out these projects to the private sector, we should have that in mind, so that the contract is able to oblige these institutions to share the data. And the last thing about the traffic management, we also, in addition to being planners, we have some products for traffic management, especially for regional, for the motorway or the road network. We don't do traffic management for signals or something. But so what we would like to offer to our clients as part of those products is the ability to forecast and use simulators to forecast the situation, what will happen, the what-if scenario in the next couple of hours when you have an accident and so on and so forth. I don't think that is still part of the state of the practice, There has been some state-of-the-art attempts also in research projects, but I think we are really close at having a product, and especially because of the computing power that has now will be able to allow you to simulate 10 minutes in less than 10 minutes, and not to take 2 hours to simulate 10 minutes. So what I see in the coming future is that we will see products that have a simulator engine integrated that will support the what-if situation in a much more sophisticated way.
Yes, briefly, I do agree with everything you said before. I think that the local and regional and national institutions, public institutions in general, have a huge challenge in relation to data management, because in most cases, not just companies, but ordinary citizens may have more data and more information on a given subject than the public authority, supposed to be authority. So the fact that the data is not kind of monopoly of the public institutions as it was before, that public institutions had the monopoly of truth, because in a way had the monopoly of data. Maybe this is happening just in Russia and China, not in Europe. This is a challenge for European institutions, which are democratic, because data is not owned by these local and regional public administrations. And then when I see new contracts between consultants and our clients, until now, everything was kind of confidential. Now we realize that managing data is more complicated, so maybe we will have to have an annex on the contracts, kind of data management report, as I think the Commission is asking on all the research projects, to have a data management report. Yeah. So we have to be explicit since the beginning on how we are going to manage data, because the data different from other goods, the more you share data, the best for everybody, let's say, because you are not losing your data if somebody else has the same data and we are working with the same data. So depending on the kind of data, is your own interest to share this data, not just the public interest. So data is becoming at the core of what we are doing.
The gold of the new era.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. You want to say something? There is another question. Okay. But I think this is the last one, I'm sorry. The last questions, please.
Why don't you create your own systems for data management, inside the country? As I understand, you use different countries or somebody else has your data. But why don't you create your own data system in Spain?
It's too late. This is too late.
Yeah.
Can I
say
two things? I think that we are living in a very challenging time, and the first one is because of the disruptions that we have seen. So we might have developed a model, a great model in 2018, but nobody understood what the impact would have been with the COVID-19. Nobody, with the economic crisis, we developed the model in 2008, for example, in Athens, and then 2009 it was obsolete because of the economic crisis. The same with the energy crisis, etc. So I'm coming back to the first question, and I say that big data and AI and machine learning might help us, collect fast data in order to understand the impact of these structural changes in the behavior of the individuals, what mode they are choosing, where are they going to live, are they going to telework, all these questions that we have. And coming back to what Maria also mentioned at the beginning, we have developed a lot of models that have shown that attitudes and perceptions play a really important role on decision-making of the individuals. So the question here is how in these tactical models we can incorporate these attitudes and perceptions that affect the decision-making. And here again, they are starting in the research field some new studies that we're using machine learning techniques to impute the attitudes from the data that has been already collected. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks a lot. So we need to conclude. So I take the words from Professor Polydoropoulou that we as a modelers are still useful. So there is a future for us. There is a future also for the tool that we developed. Data needs to be shared. This is the other message that came from the panelists. I would like to invite you to an applause to the three colleagues here.